Religion in the Netherlands was predominantly Christianity until late into the 20th century. Although religious diversity remains, there has been a decline of religious adherents. KASKI found 23.7% to be Catholic in 2013 and 10.2% to be member of the Protestant Church in the Netherlands. The total number of members of Christian groups in the Netherlands has decreased from approximately 7,013,163 in 2003 to 5,730,852 in 2013. Approximately 56.1% of the population has no religious affiliation. From a December 2014 survey by the VU University Amsterdam, it was concluded that for the first time there are more atheists than theists in the Netherlands, the majority of the population being agnostic or atheistic. Religion is in the Netherlands generally considered a personal matter which is not supposed to be propagated in public. Atheism, atheism, agnosticism, and Christian atheism are on the rise, the first three being widely accepted and the last being more or less considered to be non-controversial. Among those who adhere to Christianity there are high percentages of atheists, agnostics and atheists, since affiliation with a Christian denomination is also used in a way of cultural identification in the different parts of the Netherlands. The Sociale en Cultureel Plan Bureau expects the number of non-affiliated Dutch to be at 72% in 2020. History. The oldest data on the profession of religion by the inhabitants of the regions that are now the Netherlands are passed down by the Romans. Contrary to what ancient sources seem to suggest, the Rhine, which clearly formed the boundary of the Roman Empire, did certainly not form the boundary between residential areas of Celts and Germans. There were Germans south of it, and many place names and archaeological finds indicate the presence of Celts north of the Rhine. Between these Celtic, Germanic peoples, and later the Roman conquerors, a cultural exchange took place. An adaptation of polytheistic religions and each other myths has taken place among the various tribes, coming from both the Germanic, Celtic and later Roman mythology. Gods as Nehelenia, Hodanna and Sandraudiga are of indigenous origin. The Germanic people had gods like Woden, Donar and Frigga from Germanic origin. For example, Jupiter, Minerva and Venus have been introduced by the Romans. Tacitus also described the creation myth of Manis, a primitive man from which all Germanic tribes would have emerged. The Celts and Germans in the Low Countries were also most likely to have had tree shrines, following the example of the Old Norse Yggdrasil and the Saxon Minseul and Donner's Oak. Temples were probably only built during and after the Romanization, and have been preserved, for example in Empel and Elst. From the 4th to the 6th century AD, the Great Migration took place, in which the small Celtic, Germanic, Roman tribes in the Low Countries were gradually supplanted by three major Germanic tribes: the Franks, the Frisians and Saxons. Around 500 the Franks, initially residing between the Rhine and the Somme, adapt to Christianity. A large part of the area south of the Meuse belonged from the early Middle Ages to 1559 to Archdeacon Kempenland, which was part of the Diocese of Tongeren-Maastricht-Liege. From the center of the diocese, successively the cities of Tongeren, Maastricht and Liege, this part of the Netherlands was probably Christianized. According to tradition, the first bishop of Maastricht, Servatius, was buried in this city in 384, though only from Bishop Domitianus is established that he resided in Maastricht. However, it would take at least until 1000 AD before all pagan people were actually Christianized and the Frisian and Saxon religions went extinct, although elements were incorporated into the Christian religion. The following centuries, Catholic Christianity is the only mainstream religion in the Netherlands. In the 14th and 15th century, the first calls were heard for religious reform, although inside the Catholic Church. At the end of the Middle Ages, the Devotia Moderna created a spiritual innovation. Geert Groot established the Brethren of the Common Life, an influential mystical order, but only under the influence of humanism changed the Dutch world fundamentally, and started to shift from a theocentric to an anthropocentric worldview. The rebellious Netherlands that had united in the Union of Utrecht declared their independence from Spain in 1581. During the 80 Years' War, Spain finally accepted this in 1648. The Dutch revolt was partially religiously motivated. During the Reformation, many of the Dutch had adopted Lutheran, Anabaptist, Calvinist or Mennonite forms of Protestantism. These religious movements were suppressed by the Spanish, who supported the Counter-Reformation. After independence, the Netherlands adopted Calvinism as a quasi-state religion, but practiced a degree of religious tolerance towards non-Calvinists. It became considerably safe for Jewish and Protestant refugees from Flanders, France, Germany and England. There have always been considerable differences between Orthodox and liberal interpretations of Calvinism, between Arminianism and Gomerism in the 17th century, and between the Dutch Reformed Church and the Reformed churches in the Netherlands in the late 19th century, which even led to a denominational difference between Hervormd and Gereformeerd, though linguistically both meaning Reformed. Catholics, who dominated the southern provinces, were not allowed to practice their religion openly. They were emancipated during the late 19th and early 20th century through pillarization, by forming their own social communities. In 1947, 44.3% belonged to Protestant denominations, 38.7% belonged to the Roman Catholic Church, and 17.1% were unaffiliated. In 2013, Statistics Netherlands found that 26% of the population identified as Roman Catholic, 16% as Protestant, 5% as Muslim, and 6% as other. In 1940 to 45, 75 to 80% of Dutch Jews were murdered in the Holocaust by the Nazis. In the 20th century, the major religions began to decline as secularism grew. In the 1960s and 1970s, Protestantism and Catholicism began to decline. There is one major exception: Islam, which grew considerably as the result of immigration. Since the year 2000 there has been raised awareness of religion, mainly due to Muslim extremism. In 2013 a Catholic became Queen Consort. Abrahamic religions: Baha'ism, Christianity, Roman Catholicism. Currently, Roman Catholicism is the single largest religion of the Netherlands, forming some 23.7% of the Dutch people in 2013, down from 40% in the 1970s. After 1960, the emphasis on Catholic concepts like hell, the devil, sinning, the taboo on divorce and remarrying of widows, and Catholic traditions like confession, kneeling, the teaching of catechism and having the hostia placed on the tongue by the priest rapidly disappeared, and these concepts are nowadays seldom within contemporary Dutch Catholicism. In the 1980s and 1990s the Church became polarized between conservatives, whose main organization was the Contact Roman Catholics, and liberals, whose main organization was the 8th of May movement, which was founded in 1985. The organization had a difficult relationship with the bishops and was disbanded in 2003. In December 2011, a report was published by Wim Dietman, a former Dutch minister, detailing widespread child abuse within the Catholic Church in the Netherlands. 1,800 instances of abuse by clergy or volunteers within Dutch Catholic dioceses were reported to have occurred since 1945. A planned visit of Pope Francis to the Netherlands was blocked by Cardinal Wim in 2014, allegedly because of the feared lack of interest for the Pope among the Dutch public. The number of Catholics is not only declining, but many people who identify themselves as Roman Catholics also do not regularly attend Sunday Mass. Fewer than 200,000 people, or 1.2% of the Dutch population, attends Mass on a given Sunday. According to the Catholic University of Nijmegen Institute for Ecclesiastical Statistics in their 2007 annual statistical update of the Dutch Catholic province, most Catholics live in the southern provinces of North Brabant and Limburg, where they comprise a majority of the population in the Diocese of Roermond in the province of Limburg. According to the church administration in 2010, the population of two dioceses, 's-Hertogenbosch and Roermond, had still a majority Roman Catholic. It is notable that Seeler published precisely for these two dioceses a significantly lower number of Catholics in 2005. Based on the Seeler numbers, in the Diocese of 's-Hertogenbosch in 2010 the population has no longer a Catholic majority. According to the church administration, Catholics became a minority in the Diocese of 's-Hertogenbosch since 2014. The number of parishes in the Netherlands has dropped between 2003 and 2014 from 1525 to 842. As of 2014, Cardinal Willem Jacobus EIJK, the Archbishop of Utrecht, is the highest Catholic authority. Since the provinces North Brabant and Limburg are in the Netherlands historically mostly Roman Catholic, their people still use the term and some traditions as a base for their cultural identity rather than as a religious identity. The vast majority of the Catholic population in the Netherlands is now largely irreligious in practice. Research among Catholics in the Netherlands in 2007 shows that only 27% of the Dutch Catholics can be regarded as a theist, 55% as an atheist, deist or agnostic, and 17% as atheist. Notable Dutch Catholics include Pope Hadrian VI, Ruud Lubbers, Henry of Gorkum, Cornelius Loos, Jacob Middendorf, Hieronymus Bosch, Piet de Jong, Jan Harmenzoen Krul, Dries van Agt, Jan Steen, Casimir Ubers, Maxime Verhagen, and Joan Albert Ban. Protestant churches. The Protestant Church of the Netherlands forms the largest Protestant denomination, with some 10.2% of the population, down from 60% in the early 20th century. It was formed in 2004 as a merger of the two major strands of Calvinism, the Dutch Reformed Church and the Reformed Churches in the Netherlands, and a smaller Lutheran Church, the Evangelical Lutheran Church in the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Since the 1970s, these three churches had seen a major decline in adherents and had begun to work together. The church embraces religious pluralism. Research shows that 42% of the members of the PKN are non-theist. Furthermore, in the Protestant Church in the Netherlands and several other smaller denominations of the Netherlands, 1 in 6 clergy are either agnostic or atheist. It is the traditional faith of the Dutch royal family, a remnant of the Church's historical dominance. The number of members falls on average by about 2.5% per year. This is caused primarily by the death of older members and little growth among the younger population. A large number of Protestant churches, mostly Orthodox Calvinist splits and liberal churches, stayed out of the PKN. They represent some 4% of the population. The Bible Belt is the name given to a strip of land in the Netherlands, after the Bible Belt of the United States. The belt is inhabited by a large number of conservative Protestants. The Bible Belt stretches from Zeeland, through the West Betuwe and Veluwe, to the northern parts of the province Overijssel. However, some communities with strong conservative Protestant leanings are situated outside the belt. For example, Urk, considered by many as one of the most traditional communities in the country, and some municipalities of Friesland have characteristics typical of the Bible Belt. Other places in this area are Jaseka, Polen, Oudorp, Oeversden, Kesteren, Barneveld, Nunspeet, Elspet and Staphorst. The three biggest cities regarded to be part of the Bible Belt are Ede, Veenendaal and Kampen. The Dutch holidays are still related to Christianity, with half of the national holidays being based on or derived of Christian celebrations. Islam is a relatively new religion in the Netherlands. As per most recent statistics, about 825,000, or 4.5% of the Dutch population are Muslims. Until some years earlier, the number of Muslims was estimated based on the religious makeup of the country of origin of the parents of citizens. Through this method, the number of Muslims was greatly overestimated. For instance, in 2004, the CBS estimated there were 944,000 Muslims in the Netherlands. The official CBS count of Muslims in the Netherlands has been decreasing every year since 2004. Majority of Muslims in the Netherlands belong to Sunni denomination, with a sizable Shia minority. Approximately 1,500 belong to the Ahmadiyya sect in Islam. Muslim numbers began to rise after the 1970s as the result of immigration. Some migrants from former Dutch colonies, such as Suriname and Indonesia, were sometimes Muslim, but migrant workers from Turkey and Morocco are the biggest part, as well as their children. During the 1990s, the Netherlands opened its borders for Muslim refugees from countries like Bosnia and Herzegovina, Somalia, Iraq, Iran and Afghanistan. Of the immigrant ethnic groups, 100% of Bosniaks, 99% of Moroccans, 90% of Turks, 69% of Asians, 64% of other Africans, and 12% of Surinamese were Muslims. Muslims form a diverse group. Social tensions between native Dutch and migrant Muslims began to rise in the early 21st century. With the rise and murder of populist politician Pim Fortuyn by militant animal rights activist Volkert van der Graaf and the murder of Theo van Gogh by an extremist Muslim, Mohammed Bouhiera, part of the Hofstad network, Judaism because of its social tolerance, the Dutch Republic formed a haven for Jews that were persecuted because of their beliefs throughout Europe. Prominent Dutch Jews include Baruch Spinoza, a 17th-century philosopher, Aletta Jacobs, a 19th-century feminist, and Henry Pollack, who founded both the Socialist Party SDAP and the Labour Union NVV. The majority of Jews lived in Amsterdam, where they formed an eighth of the population. During the Second World War, about 75% of Dutch Jews were deported and murdered in the Holocaust.